Welcome back. It is recap time for Powerless. The question is, what voice should I use? I almost want to use some type of horror movie voice of some kind because, the implications are already pretty dark. Last time on Powerless, we met Peyton, who was poor, and we watched her run around her city. She lives in a garbage pile fort with her friend Adina and steals for a living. We also learned about the plague, which gave some people superpowers. Next, we met Kai and his half-brother Kit, two princes of the land, and also Blair, a bully archetype with lilac hair. Don't forget that. It's very important. She has lilac hair. Kai has the ability to use other people's powers. We watched as Peyton wove through town and stole stuff, including snagging a secret message for some reason. Peyton pretended to be a psychic while actually employing Sherlock Holmes levels of deduction. Peyton encountered Kai looking super hot in the town and robbed him flirtily. And then we watched as Kai basically reenacted the opening of Inglourious Bastards, and we're still supposed to like him for some reason?
Hello, hello. It is another scorcher of a day here in Wisconsin, but I am back to read at least one more chapter of Powerless. We are still with Kai, Captain Daddy issues over here. I'm curious if there are healing abilities in this world. I'm sure they're just called healers because we're not creative at all. But Kai has a sore knee from when that father attacked him while trying to save his child. Also, it's good to know that both he and our lead feel the same way about these slums. Both of them are this place is disgusting, it's drab, it's gray, we hate it. Nobody has a good opinion of this place. I would love to see maybe a differing opinion, some culture, culture that has grown up around the people who live here. But no, this place is just awful and everything about it is awful. The people who live here are awful. Not a redeeming quality in sight. He says by midday, the streets always smell of sweaty bodies and questionable food. And I'm like, what is the food? So far, all we know is sticky buns and fruit. What is the food like here? Please, I'm begging you to do some world building. So something potentially interesting is that there are different classes of magical people. So we've got the mundanes, who are people who have, I guess, boring types of magic. And we also now find out about the defensives, which I'm guessing are people who can maybe use combat magic, maybe create shields or something like that. I don't know. Hopefully it'll get explained later. And a little bit of this does remind me of the culture that I built in my book, Adventurer Mage, which is going to be a 3-book series, around the magic in that world, because I have always felt that people with magic would naturally take charge and people without magic would naturally sort of be subjugated, or at least not the people in charge. And I will say that this book agrees with me on that. People with magical powers seems likely that they would look down on people without magical powers, instead of what we see in so many books where it's somehow the normies have subjugated the people with the magical powers. I get it, it's a metaphor for specialness, but anyway, so I agree with that. And within my book and within this book too, there are cultural divides even among magical people with the types of magic that they have. In my book, there are several types of magic which are just considered not right. So it's the cosmic joke of being born with magic. Hey, yay, I am powerful, only to find out that you have one of the uncool types of magic and you're still culturally, societally not as awesome as you could be. And I really like to play with that in my story. I don't know how much this author is going to play with that concept.
Get used to disappointment.
If you like that concept from this book, maybe try Adventurer Mage. I do feel that it has a decided lack of genocide. So, go check that out. Okay, we are here finally. It took us 2 chapters with Kai, but we are getting to the meet cute from Kai's point of view. First of all, it is really boring to read the same scene again from a different character's point of view. If it's the same scene, if we're not getting anything drastically new from this scene, then we don't need it. I'll probably talk about that more and like decisions I've made in my own books when dealing with 2 points of view with characters. But just in general, resist the urge to do the same scenes from different characters' points of view. The body I'm holding undoubtedly belongs to a female, though the mass of long silver hair brushing against my arms is proof enough. So this just in, only women can have long hair. I don't know what that makes me then. I guess maybe I'm a boy? He says, it's evident that malnourishment stripped her of most of the muscle she evidently once had. How does he know that she used to have muscle? Like when people lose a lot of weight, they'll be like excess skin sometimes, but like that's a significant amount of weight. If I lost what little muscle I have, you wouldn't really be able to tell that I ever had it. So now we just have to have a lengthy chunk of text where he just describes how attractive he finds her, just like she described how attractive she found him. Because we have a lot of repeated dialogue, we're hearing literally their conversation again. If you must have the same scene from a different character's POV, I'm gonna need you to summarize conversations that we've already seen. This is why the second book in the Savior series was boring, is because there was so much repetition, lines that we'd already read, whole scenes that we'd already read, just like copy pasted. The reader does not want or need that. If you are going to have the same scene again, find ways to make that version very different from the version that we literally just read. How does she not know who he is? He like kills people in the town square sometimes, it sounds like. It seems like he like publicly executes people. How does she not know? Oh my god, okay, we get it. He really, really likes her eyes. Like a lot. And he will not shut the fuck up about it. This has been like 3 paragraphs of him just talking about how amazing her eyes are. We get it, dude. Okay, finally we have a difference that makes this scene matter. Skip all the preamble, summarize all the preamble. Here's where it matters that we're in his point of view. He reaches out to sense what her powers are, and he finds nothing. And again, we're supposed to, I presume, like this man. And he's like, this is the part where I would either throw her over my shoulder and carry her to the dungeon, or literally just murder her in the street. He's like, I would just slit her throat in the street. How has she not noticed the guy going around town slitting people's throats in the street? You'd think she would figure out that this guy exists and know to steer far clear of him if she's such a canny thief who like runs this city. She's paid enough attention to know when there are 2 fewer guards around on a day, but she doesn't know that this man exists. So he lets her go because she makes him hard. And he runs into another robber who's like a big scary man. And he realizes that she has also stolen from him. Man is out here in a button-down shirt and pants with a money pouch hanging outside of it. He has pockets. Like, I don't know what to picture in this world. I'm picturing, like, fantasy medieval village, but everybody's just wandering around in modern clothes. So there's 3 guys, but don't worry, Kai is just really good at fighting, so I'm not concerned that he's in danger. I'm not sure why this fight scene is happening, though. Maybe to justify this chapter being longer than, like, the 3 pages it takes for him to lust over the main character, them to repeat the dialogue from the previous scene, and then we're done. Why is this fight happening? What are we learning from this particular fight with these random thugs? We already know kind of how he fights because we saw him with Kit. We already know that he's a good fighter. We already know that he uses other people's powers against them. Fight scenes, while they can be used to tweak your pacing, you know, to speed things up when they've been slow, but they still have to have a purpose. They have to do something. I've got a fight scene in my book, Boots, that some people could argue might be unnecessary, and it did almost get deleted, but I decided to keep it in because it's doing something. There's a character called Lyle, whom I love, and he is a bit of a brawler, and he likes to get into fights, and he manages to do so, and then Princess Joanna comes upon him in the fight, and she could intervene because she's the princess. She could, like, step up and throw her weight around and be like, hey, everybody stop fighting. But she doesn't. She lets him fight, and we watch the fight. Does this scene, strictly speaking, need to be here? No, but it tells you things about the characters. 1, that Lyle does like to kind of get into fights and get into trouble. 2, that he can fight his way out of it. He's skilled enough to do so. 3, it teaches you a lot about his and Joanna's relationship, that she understands that his pride is very important to him, and she will not damage that by intervening. She would intervene if he was like about to die, but she does let him get injured because she knows that he doesn't want her to intervene. So you see a lot about their relationship in that fight scene. What's happening in this fight scene? Are we learning anything new? No. Oh, also, I'm already tempted to give this injuries don't matter because he mentioned that he had an injured knee, but it didn't slow him down at all during this fight. He was fine. So he wins the fight by literally smashing a guy's skull in. And then, so the aftermath of the fight, I think, is the thing that the author wanted for us, but I feel like we could have gotten here without some big unnecessary, like, randomly attacked by thugs. Also, why doesn't Kai still have his guards with him? He's the prince. Like, why aren't they still with him? But anyway, he wins the fight, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, creeping out of the shadows, everybody keeps coming out of the shadows. This must be the shadowiest place on Earth. I think it's still fucking daytime, but people are coming out of the shadows. Where are these shadows deep enough to hide people? I don't know. But another person comes out of the shadows, and this is a silencer who just happened to, I guess, be here. Again, things in this book I feel like are just happening because the plot needs them to, not because they make sense. But a silencer comes out of the shadows, and as you can guess by the name, they dampen other people's powers. So Kai is like, oh no, my powers are being dampened. Although I don't know why, like, I guess his absorbing power does not make him also absorb the dampening power. I don't know how that works. So Kai is starting to pass out because I guess your powers are really linked to your life force or something. I don't really understand how it works, but he's like face down in the dirt about to pass out, and I'm sitting here being like, good. Other people have gathered around to watch, and he's like, none of them recognize me. And I'm like, why or how? Oh, but don't worry, he's about to be saved by the girl. He sees a flash of silver hair. So Peyton is coming back to save his sexy ass. Thank goodness. All right. Longest chapter, this next one, but let's get to it. We are back for the next chapter, chapter 7, with Peyton coming to the rescue of our sexy boy. Will this make him even more suspicious? That she doesn't have powers, I mean. She's way too hot for him to, like, kill in the street like he would anybody else. Oh, I guess in Peyton's timeline, it's actually the end of the day, even though I feel pretty confident that in Kai's timeline, it was midday. A crowd has drawn her attention, and she goes back and she's like, oh my god, it's that guy that I just robbed, that she says she saw less than 10 minutes ago. And she shows up just in time to see him, like, obliterate that dude's face with a flaming fist. This alley that he's in is supposedly simultaneously large enough for a crowd to have gathered, but small enough for multiple people to have been hiding in the shadows. Everyone has daddy issues, by the way, because, like, when she sees Kai being, like, tortured on the ground, it immediately reminds her of her father. So, daddy issues for everybody. This author, again, does not trust you. I'm gonna put, do you think your reader is dumb? Because she does not trust you. She keeps repeating that Peyton is reminded of her father in this situation. Just point blank repeating it to us as well. When I look at the stranger, it's my father I see. That is not the first time that we've just been told that in this section so far. And it is not a very big section. It's like a page. So don't do that. Like, trust your reader to pick it up the first time. If you feel like you need to keep reiterating, that's you not trusting your reader. Beta readers will tell you if they're not getting it, and then you can maybe hit it a little bit harder if you need to. And again, we get the repetition of, I didn't save my father when this happened, but I will now. We get it. We get it the first time.
This also begs the question, is this the first, like, attempted murder she's seen here in Loot Alley, the hive of crime and villainy? Like, she's acting like this reminds her so much of her father's death that she has to act. But Kai doesn't, like, look like her father or anything. Like, there's no physical similarities, really. It's just that he's in trouble and about to die, and that reminds her of her father, and that spurs her on to act. But then, like, has she somehow avoided ever seeing anyone else, like, get jumped and killed in this alley? Or did all of those times she ignore the urge to save them? Or did she save them? I don't know. I have a lot of questions.
She manages to distract the silencer, and he tries to use his power on her, but oh no, he can't because she doesn't have any powers. Totally, 100% wink wink. Also, for the first time, we find out that her father had totally trained her how to fight. So thank goodness for that thing that happened off page and we haven't mentioned until now. We had enough space in the chapters that we've gotten from Peyton so far to have found out that her father taught her how to fight. We don't need to wait until the moment when she's fighting, because then it seems like the author is just pulling that out of their ass. Like, oh yeah, by the way. It'd be one thing if there wasn't the space for it so far in this book, but there has been. So while she is fighting with this guy, she's having like flashbacks to when her father died. So much blood everywhere, and we find out that the king himself stabbed her father in the chest. She has time to swap the ring that she's wearing from her thumb to a middle finger, so when she punches him, she does extra damage. I would like to know what the crowd is doing at this point. Like, they had gathered to watch, but like, are they cheering? Are they jeering? Are they leaving? What is the mood of the crowd that is no doubt still watching her fight this guy now? Are they ignoring her and robbing the man on the ground? Like, what's going on? It's like they don't exist anymore. And I get that she's very focused on her fight, but I still feel like she might be able to give us a little bit of information about what the crowd is doing. Even something as simple as people cheer when she punches this guy in the nose. Or boo. I don't know which side they're on. I really don't need her character to also be a kick-ass fighter. Like, I'm a little bit disappointed that she is. Now, don't get me wrong, I love women who can fight. I write about women who can fight. But she's already like a master thief, and she's so observant. And I didn't need her to also just have like all of this amazing martial prowess that her dad totally taught her before he died. He could have taught her anything. It's that light lark problem all over again, where you just tell us that a character had training before a certain point, and you can then tell us that she's trained in anything. But like, I think it weakens her character to make her so good at fighting also. I would have loved if instead of just taking out this guy with blows, she came in and started out talking him like she did with the other guard, where she like revealed that his wife had an affair. Let her use the powers that you have already established for her in the book so far, instead of giving her new ones where suddenly she's also really good at fighting. Not every strong female character has to be a fighter, and that's okay. I love women who fight. I love me a badass warrior woman. But also, not every single strong female character needs to be a fighter. So she takes out this silencer, she beats the crap out of him, and knocks him unconscious with the hilt of her dagger. And I don't know if we're going to see the silencer guy again. I thought maybe he was going to be like an antagonist. Like, he seemed really mysterious at first. Like, he came out of nowhere and he went straight after Kai. And I was like, ooh, who is this guy? Mystery antagonist? But like, she's beating him up and fully like seeing his face now. His face is no longer obscured. And like, we don't care what he looks like. Like, he definitely right now feels like a means to an end to get her to be able to save Kai. Again, by using martial prowess. We didn't need it. So is this guy going to be coming back? Or are we just introducing the fact that silencers exist? Some cops show up, and she doesn't think to run. She's just like, oh, they're gonna arrest me. It's like she basically sits there on top of the guy that she just pummeled and is like, oh no. But the cops run right past her and go to Kai, and she's like, a clue.
Oh, did you see a clue?
She finally figures out, thanks to people in the crowd being like, it's Prince Kai. She's like, Prince Kai, I've never seen him before. And I'm still wondering how and why she's never seen him before. Are there no portraits? Is his face nowhere in the city? Like, she's never seen this guy who will come to your home and kill your family members? Maybe he keeps himself a mystery. But if that's the case, he's definitely not doing a very good job of that in the chapters where we've seen him work. All of a sudden, she knows all about him, though. He's the future enforcer, said to be callous and calculating, yet charismatic and charming when he wishes to be, when he chooses to play the part. Like, oh my god. Yeah, the people call him the deliverer of death, and if I was her, I would have made some effort to find out what the fuck he looks like so I can avoid him. If she's supposed to be so smart, that seems like a thing that she would do. Again, this guy would feel a lot more badass if I wasn't just picturing him in business casual. When you give me a description of a character, I'm gonna do my best to picture it that way, if I can. I will picture it the way that you describe. So those of you who are feeling disheartened because you keep being told, don't bother describing characters, nobody's gonna picture them that way anyway, I will. If you're gonna describe him as looking like a businessman in modern times, I'm gonna have a hard time taking him seriously when he's barking orders to fantasy guardsmen. Uh-oh, We've got the first move that the girlies love. We gotta have all of these. That's like a hallmark of this kind of books. So she's like, I gotta go. I don't know why she didn't run before this. I guess she just had to watch. But she's like, that's my cue. And she tries to run, but of course he catches up with her. And he grabs her and he pins her to the wall like this because the girlies love that move. So she was running away from him because she's figured out who he is. But she says, I'm not sure what I was expecting him to do, but this certainly was not it. Maybe offer a polite thank you, not an interrogation against a grimy wall. Ma'am, you just said that he was known as the deliverer of death. And upon that remembrance, you decided to run from him. But now you're surprised that he's not thanking you? And of course, she's going to be quippy. She's face to face with a man who has, like, apparently slit people's throats in public, and in fact, a man who she just watched punch someone's face in. But she's going to be quippy, because girlies in these kind of books don't know any other way to be. Like, they can only be quippy. Here's the thing, you can have a quippy character, but they don't feel realistic if all they are is quippy. If they are in a scenario where they very well could be killed, and being a little bit sassy is probably not going to lead to their survival, they don't have to always be like one way all the time. We know that he's gonna like this and think that this is flirty and adorable, but she doesn't know that. She doesn't know what type of book she's in, presumably, although I think if we go forward believing that the characters do know what type of book they're in, then we'll probably be happier with our reading experience. By the way, the crowd is just watching him stand there pinning her like this to a wall as they mutter sweet sassing at each other back and forth. He's leaning in really close, by the way, so it's very hot and people are just standing around watching this happen. I'm as dead as the plague. The plague is dead? I mean, I guess technically it's over, but maybe you mean as dead as the plague should have made you? I don't know. I don't know if there's a catchy way to say that. And because she is one of these quippy, badass female characters, she can't feel actual fear. Her nervousness is replaced immediately by anger because one of the hallmarks of this type of girly, and we've seen it over and over and over again, is that they got one emotion on lock, and that's anger. She goes on to quipping and sassing with this man because that's the romantic trope and not what anybody would logically do in this scenario. Of course he's charmed, because both of them know what type of book they're in. So he's like, why can't I sense your powers? And she's like, oh, I'm a psychic. And he's like, oh, I've never met one of those before. Like, show me your powers. That doesn't answer his question about why he can't feel her powers. But he's just going along with it, I guess, because she's hot. She basically tells him that it's because her power is so weak. She's basically Diana Troy. She can only get flashes of emotions from people, and she can make inferences from that. Obviously all a lie, but that's what she's going with. She's like, ask anybody. They all know that I'm a psychic. Go ask that cop specifically, because he and I had a conversation this morning. By the way, he keeps calling her darling because every single one of these guys, he is a copy-paste LI, by the way. Love interest is what LI stands for. He's a copy-paste LI because he also has given her a nickname. They always give the girls a nickname, which is supposed to be cute, but I actually find kind of demeaning. Like, you've just shown up, you've just met this person, and you've decided that you're gonna call them something that's not their name, and yet the girls all find it charming instead of, like, infantilizing and gross. So he's calling her darling. That's his nickname for her, and I want to die. But he's decided, okay, yes, do prove your powers to me. So I feel like we could have cut that bit where she's like, ask anybody, ask that cop over there, and just like had him be like, prove it. By the way, he stopped pinning her to the wall now, finally, for this part of the conversation. Also, in case anyone was wondering about the condition of his hands, he has calloused hands, and we are being told that over and over and over again. It is okay to repeat physical details about a character occasionally, but you don't need to keep doing it, especially not in the same scene. Like, we get it. He has calloused hands. I'm picturing his hands are like nothing but one giant callus at this point because she keeps fucking bringing it up. Also, I'm still wondering why. Why did we have the fight with the thugs and then the fight with the, I've already forgotten his name, the silencer? I thought that maybe he was gonna have to deal with the silencer and then be like, oh, the reason that I couldn't sense her powers is because the silencer was nearby. But we just beat everybody up. Maybe the silencer will come back. He's being taken to jail, so maybe he will be a returning villain.
Get used to disappointment.
But like, where the fuck did he come from? I have so many questions. I have so many questions. At least the author is doing this time what I had hoped she had done with the previous time that the main character was like making observations. We are actually watching her make observations about him so that she can pretend to be psychic in real time instead of going, here's the thing that she did, and then here's how she did it. So I like this version better. So she glances down at his shoes and she sees that they're all scuffed with sand. By the way, it sounds like he was wearing dress shoes, just modern day dress shoes, but they're all scuffed with sand, and she knows that they literally live like right on the cusp of a desert. So she's like, aha, a clue.
Oh, you mean another one of Blue's Clues?
Again, how does she not know this guy? She's like, ah, he must have had to drag some people to the desert for banishment. And I'm like, if this happens, then people will have seen him. She's like, oh, when the prince comes to call, nobody ever sees him because everyone who's in contact with him is dead. But are there no neighbors? Are there no nosy people? There's homeless people everywhere in this part of town. They didn't see... No, they would have 100% seen him. She could have gotten a description at least so she knew who to avoid. She's like, you were somewhere hot, sandy, the scorches. You mean the desert that's like literally right outside your city? I feel like you didn't need to reveal which desert. He believes her. He's fully sold on the fact that she has psychic powers of some variety and that he just can't detect them, and that must be what's going on. He's gonna make a shitty, like, enforcer if he just, like, can be so easily convinced that she does correct him, that her name is Payden, not Darling, but usually these girlies do, and the men ignore them and keep calling them the nickname. Let's see if he does the same thing. Eventually, then the girls come to like the nickname and find it endearing, even though, yeah, it's gross and insulting. He says, did you not get enough silvers when you robbed me the first time? They're called silvers now? I thought they were called shillings. Which one do we call them? Yep, he calls her darling again. He is not going to use her real name. We're just headed straight down that exact same road that they always follow. He says something snarky, and that's the end of the chapter. He leaves her alone after that. Oh, the next chapter is like 2 pages long, so I'll go ahead and read that today as well. All right, we have one more little chapter for me to read today. It is from Payden's point of view, and it's real short, so let's go. She goes back home, which they call the fort, because nobody is creative in this world. Not the author, not the characters. By the time she gets home, her friend already knows about everything that happened because the entire market is abuzz with it. So I find it extremely hard to believe that she would have no clue what the prince looks like. Even if she's never personally seen him, she should know. But of course, once young Adina has ascertained that our main character is okay, her next most pertinent question is the prince hot? Now she's popular, and of course she's got silver hair, so she stands out. So everybody in town is like, it's her! It's the girl who fought off the silencer and, like, helped the prince. People are applauding her as she goes by. It's a literal everyone clapped moment. She claims that she has been building up her reputation as a psychic for years, earning respect and witnesses to my abilities. I would love to have seen some of that. Like, the only thing that we see is her using her quote-unquote abilities on a random cop who has no idea whether she has them. What I would like to have seen is for people around her to have acknowledged that they think she has that ability before now. But that would imply that she has formed any types of relationships with all of the other homeless people in the city, which I feel like she would have. But no, we don't want her to have any friends or relationships besides that one person. So, like, we have to simultaneously keep her as removed as possible from the culture of this place, but also make it so everybody totally knows her reputation. They're calling her the Silver Savior?
We have a problem.
I guess, is this just a superhero book with a, like, fantasy sheen put over the top of it? I feel like that's what this is. Like, this author wanted to make a superhero book, but couldn't get it traditionally published because superhero books are dead right now. Well, supposedly it's a dead genre. Publishing just decides these things, but superhero books are still a dead genre. So I feel like what she did was she just took her superhero book and just slapped a fantasy coat of paint over top of it. But she finds this random banner and it says, "The people of Ilya have chosen introducing your contestants for the 6th ever purging trials." I don't know when the choosing was happening. Apparently people vote. The main character didn't think about doing that herself or going to check that out at all. So clearly that part is not important. The choosing ceremony from the Hunger Games was clearly not this author's favorite part. But Payton's name is at the bottom of the list. I thought maybe we were going to go with Adina. I thought we were going to go full Hunger Games with Adina being chosen and then Payton having to step in for her. But no, Payton's just on the list, so I don't know why her friend Katniss's sister is even here. But that was it for the chapter. She just walked through town. Everybody clapped. They gave her a cringy nickname, and she sees the list with her name on it. So good. Great. Glad we did that. No world building to be seen. It's just let's keep it pushing, which in a book this thick, like, yes, please, let's get to the actual plot of the story. But I know that this book is in fact this thick because there's going to be a lot of repetition, both on the sentence level and on the scene level. Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. But that's all my reading for today, everyone. I'm going to go edit my own book to get it ready for beta readers, and I will return later with more Powerless. Hello, it's been like a week since I did this. I'm also having some audio issues with the phone that I'm using to record this, so hopefully all will work out and it's not just going to crash on me like it already has once recording this thing. But we're back. Do I remember what's happening? Not really. Well, no, I do. The main girl, whose name I've already forgotten, she just got put into this world's Hunger Games. And it did make me think about, like, the pacing for this story. Like, what do I think of the pacing? Because honestly, I don't hate just the pacing itself on the face of it, because so many books nowadays want to rush and get, like, right to the inciting incident. Like, go, 1,000 miles an hour. If the first chapter doesn't start with the inciting incident, you're doing it wrong. And this book didn't do that. Now, I won't say that it had an amazing first chapter. Like, it tried to be all, like, suspenseful and tense, and then it turned out we didn't actually have any reason to be tense because she was, like, perfectly fine and comfortable and had done this a million times, but it tried. But we did take a little while to get to know the characters before they get dumped into the Hunger Games. We are on page 66, so she only just got in. I still don't feel like I have a handle at all on what these games are. Would have been nice if more of that had mattered, because, like, yes, pacing aside, plotting, not doing great. Because I have a suspicion that these quote-unquote games are going to be at least a sizable portion of this book. And, I mean, maybe they won't. Maybe like 2 chapters and they'll be over. I don't know. But the blurb made it sound like they're going to be a sizable portion of this book. And if so, the characters should care about it. Like, it'd be like in the Hunger Games if we started out with Katniss and she didn't give a fuck about the Hunger Games and didn't think about it barely at all. And then when the day of the reaping came around, she was like, ho-hum. Oh, no, my sister. So let's go. We're with Kai. We open on a torture scene, in case you were wondering if Kai is still a terrible person. Yep, he's torturing the silencer that he encountered in the market that, like, tried to beat him up. He thinks that this person has a high pain threshold because he inflicts pain on other people. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, I'll read you the line. I suppose that pain becomes a familiar thing when you are continually inflicting it upon others. You become numb to it. Not numb that way. Not numb as in you can't feel it yourself if you get tortured. Like, what the heck kind of logic is that, Kai? You're just trying to sound like a sad, broody boy. Because he's like, we're the same. We torture people.
You play the ghost of a dream of a memory of a cyborg warrior trying to find his dead wife inside a poem.
Oh, we're trying to do some world building here, and it is clunky. So he's surrounded by something called mute, which capital M mute, which I initially assumed was another type of superpower, but apparently it's like a metal or a stone or something that he surrounded himself with that conveniently the king, like, has on hand and, like, hoards. And conveniently, the king has used this mute, which I guess must be a metal, really unclear, to make, like, cells and handcuffs and chains so that he can imprison superpowered people. I'm confused by this line. So he's thankful that he has this protection here, and he says, I can't stop replaying the scene in my mind, remembering the pain splitting my skull, the utter helplessness as I lay there completely at the mercy of a mere man. But he's not a mere man. He has powers. He has superpowers. By this token, you are also a mere man. Like, not even like a mere peasant or a nobody, a mere man. What is that supposed to mean in the context of this world? Oh, very convenient. I have a feeling I'm going to be saying, oh, very convenient a lot in this book. Do I have conveniences down on here? Because I should have. I need a bigger bingo card. No, I don't. But I think I should make it the middle square. The middle square is now called That's Convenient. Because this book can just say whatever it wants, because it's just literally making it up as we go along, which I know is something I do as a pantser, but I try to make it seem a little bit less, just like the author decided that they needed it, and so therefore it exists. But conveniently, Kai has never encountered another psychic before, so he's, in all of his, like, travels, catching people who don't have powers. He's never encountered a psychic. So he's like, I don't know how they work, so that must be how they work. He couldn't ask anyone. He couldn't look it up in a book. He couldn't be like, hey, I'm the prince. Somebody bring me a psychic so I can see what they're like. He's just like, huh, that must be how they work. Sounds about right. Carry on. This idiot is the one supposedly doggedly hunting down these people who don't have powers. He could be tricked. I feel like he could go into somebody's house and be like, you don't have powers. And the person could be like, I think you don't have powers. And then Kai would have to stand there puzzling it out for several minutes. Like, wait, do I? So I'm reading another book right now that is another one of these sort of flawed fantasy stories that are all kind of all the same. And in it, we have the female character who is supposedly a really, really good fighter. But she has to be not as good as her love interest. So, like, he can teach her and train her, and they can have that whole moment where she just can't beat him. And I hate that, because, like, why not have it so your female lead can, like, best your male lead sometimes. But I'm curious if this book is going to do the same thing. If they're going to have a fight and she's going to lose because she just can't, like, it's a rule in these books that no matter how badass the woman is, the male lead has to be more badass. Because if he's not more badass than her, then his masculinity is just gone. Just gone. And how can we like him if he's not the most masculine thing we've ever fucking seen? So we don't actually watch him do any torturing. We just find out that he has been torturing. How he's been able to be torturing, thanks to this mute stuff, which I imagine, like kryptonite, will just happen to be around at random points. And then he's like, I'm done. He hasn't gotten anything. He's just like, he thinks about the hot girl who saved him, and he's like, I'm done here, and he leaves. So thank God we had this scene. We need to know that he will beat a man bloody for no reason. Because he's the guy we're supposed to root for? Oh, new piece of lore just dropped. Fucking, my God. So you know how I said the pacing was doing okay before? Actually not as good as I thought, because we're getting like a key plot point just like fucking plonked in our laps. I guess there's a resistance. I should have had rebels on the bingo card. How am I supposed to... There's so many things. But there's a resistance, and the king's like, I can't keep up with this resistance that I've only just mentioned now, and it's probably going to be a key plot point. And the silencer is probably part of the resistance. And I'm like, where the fuck did the resistance come from? Maybe we could have mentioned them in that earlier scene with the king and spared us having to have this scene with the king. The king is convinced that though the person that attacked Kai had a superpower, the real threat is the people without the superpowers, because the king thinks, I mean, it's stupid, obviously. I don't know if it's supposed to be this stupid or if we think we've actually done something here, but the king thinks that the people without powers had just, like, coerced these people who do have powers to come attack him. If he thinks so little of these powerless people that they couldn't even attack him themselves, like, it makes it so difficult to believe that he's afraid of them. If he's like, yeah, they have to, like, send superpowered people after us. Are they just that convincing? Is that what you think? Like, I just don't get it. Also, the king loves italics. Like, so many of the king's lines have italics in them, and I'm like, please calm down. So basically, the king just showed up in Kai's room to exposit at him about this resistance that we're just hearing about now. Capital R resistance, of course. Nothing can be important and go uncapitalized. Then the king is like, now go make that silencer guy wish he was dead, and Kai's like, already planned on it. Scene. Great scene, everyone. Smash cut to Kai doing more sexy and totally heterosexual wrestling with his shirt off and men around. One of the men is his brother, grant you that, but This is one of those lines that you write and then, like, you notice and delete later. Kit hums. We've all written that shit, right? But, like, you catch it because it's silly and redundant. We have a new character. His name is Jax. He's 15 and just really excitable. Do we have another Too Good for This Cruel World Too Pure? He's also black. Interesting. If he also turns out to be a Too Good for This Sinful World Too Pure, we have 2 black characters, both with the same trait. Oh, again, we're just dropping shit on me. I'm like, what the fuck? This author doesn't know, like, how to introduce stuff, like, slowly and organically. It seemed like maybe she did, but now I'm realizing how much got left out, and we're, like, over 60 pages in. We're at page 70 right now, and apparently he has always looked at this kid like a little brother, and we have not fucking mentioned him until now. This kid, though, this kid has I Die for the Pathos written all over him. I shouldn't be surprised that we have such fantasy language as my bad. Blair is back. I believe I remember her, and she has lilac hair. So, and we're told again the color of her hair. So we totally have a pink hair moment. Why can't I remember the name of the character? I keep thinking Sloane, but that's not the name of the character that had pink hair. I don't know why. I'm just having a total brain fart every time I try to think of that character. Sloane was Liam's sister. Ah, you know who I mean. You know who I mean. You watched my review of the Silly Dragon book. So now we have a new thing, and that is, what color is Blair's hair? Well, thank goodness we're told, lilac. Okay, the names for these superpowers, I don't think it's ever gonna get old. So he looks over to see Blair is sparring with someone named Sadie. I don't think it matters. And Sadie can, like, duplicate herself, and she's a cloner.
Are you serious?
Sometimes you can just feel when an author has put so much thought and care into their world building. Suddenly we care about Sadie. We're hearing about Sadie, who was just Blair's sparring partner, and now we're finding out that she's the king's advisor? What? Why? How? Does it matter? Like, is this going to be an important plot point later that we have to suddenly know about Sadie now?
Get used to disappointment.
Yeah, nobody cares about these fucking trials, the Hunger Games of this book, because Sadie's like, hey, congratulations on making it into the trials, and Kai is like, oh yeah, fuck the trials. Like, does not matter. Oh, of course. They're talking about, like, who's in the trials, and Kai, I believe his name is on there, but also Jax's name is on there, and Kai's like, oh no, not Jax, and I'm like, oh yes, he has I Die for the Pathos just stamped on his forehead, this poor kid. That's what you get for having enthusiasm. Oh goodness, I have multiple problems with this sentence. So they're like, who else is competing? And Blair's like, here, I have the flyer. You know, in her catty way, because she's a bitch and we're supposed to hate her. My eyes snag on a particular arrangement of letters before my breath snags in my throat. So first we have snag and snag in the same sentence, but also a particular arrangement of letters to mean that you recognize someone's name. You see what I mean about this author just using too many words to say things. It's okay to use simpler words. Now, yes, you can have more complicated sentences. Yes, you can have your sentences be more complex than they need to be, but if you do it to this extent, you're gonna look amateurish. Like, this reads like an amateur's book, and how can I tell? One of the ways is that she uses way more words than are necessary, all the time. That's the end of that chapter. That was just such a messy chapter. That was like all over the place, and I spent the entire time going, why are we here? What is this scene doing? I'm sure it's like important somehow that we know that the king still hates, there's a resistance, which we could have brought up in a previous scene, but it's important that we know that the king still hates people without powers for some fucking reason. He's just a racist. I don't know. All of the things that were introduced in this chapter, in these scenes, were very clumsily introduced, and I was praising the author and the pacing, but like, this chapter was pretty poor. A pretty poor showing on that front. How long is my next chapter with Payton, who is obviously going to be just destroyed that she's got to be in this tournament? Not very long, so I'll probably just come back for it. We're back for another thrilling chapter, this time with Payton. We have gawking and gawking in the same sentence right away. Great job. She thinks that the people voted for her to go into this tournament because she saved the prince, which, I mean, might be true. She's the only one who doesn't know him. Everyone else has seen him around killing a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed cop shows up and he's like, hey, now that you've seen the sign, I need you to come with me to the castle so you can get ready to go into the Hunger Games, which don't begin for another 2 weeks. We could have so much more just faffing around. Oh my god. Like, I understand that in the original Hunger Games book, it did take us a while to get into the actual games, but like, Suzanne Collins understood how to pace that to make the games like this big looming thing, like consuming the characters' thoughts, attention, everything. Here, we don't care about the trials. No one cares about the trials. Kai didn't even fucking remember to find out who was in them. But we are just going full Hunger Games clone here. So, like, she has to go to the castle 2 weeks in advance because there are training, interviews, and of course, a ball. So we're just going to the Capitol, and the Capitol is just, like, wearing a different hat this time. She does not, I don't know, need this young cop in the balls and run away. She seems to have resigned herself to her fate. She's just like, I gotta run home and say goodbye to my not sister. Also, if you were wondering what color Adina's eyes are, they are hazel. Much like the pink hair and also the lavender hair, we cannot have Adina in a scene without being reminded that her eyes are hazel. They're both upset, but they're not acting like this is certainly a death sentence. They're like, it's really, really dangerous. The trials are super dangerous. You could die. But it doesn't sound like, you know, in the Hunger Games, there can only be one winner and everyone else has to die. But it sounds like maybe other people can survive the trials. So it's just going to be super dangerous. For some reason, the main character says, I can do this. I was made to do this. When have we ever gotten the idea that, like, she doesn't even think about the trials and now she's like, this is what I'm meant for? Like, and maybe she's just trying to be reassuring to Adina, but even then, it's a weird thing to say. So I think that Adina exists so that I think the author realized that, like, having Payton not have anybody made us wonder even more than we already are wondering why the fuck Payton would go along with this instead of just fucking skipping town, go somewhere else. You know, there's got to be other places to be. At least she's probably not going to die for the pathos. Maybe she still will. She might still. She might make it to book 2. But yes, we do have to have her be too good for this sinful world, too pure, again, as shorthand for why Payton would want to come back to her. Honestly, I don't really like this scene. I don't think it's doing anything for the story, having her be able to go back and have this little moment that feels too short. It's like only a few pages long of these girls like just processing super fast that this is happening to them. There's no grieving process. There's no denial. There's no bargaining. There's no anger. They're just like, oh, you're in the trials? Oh, that really sucks. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you. Like, come home to me. Like, it feels so quick. And unless you can do this sort of scene justice, just skip it. Just have the cop, like, grab her and be like, sorry, you have to come immediately. And she just doesn't see Adina again. And that could be a different kind of, like, pain for her because she's like, Adina won't know what happened to me. Like, I have no way to tell her. Drama, drama, tragedy, tragedy. Instead, we already have these girls being like, I was made for this, and Adina being like, if anyone can make it out of the trials, it's you. And it's like, you didn't even care about the trials until today, and now we're supposed to be having this really emotional scene about it. Like, it's not working at all. And then she just goes back to the cop. Like, the actual talking to her friend and processing is like maximum 2 pages. She's loaded into a carriage with 2 other competitors, a girl and a boy, and we find out that the boy's name is Ace Elway. And because this is a magical world, he immediately introduces himself with his power. So he's like, I'm Ace Elway. I'm an illusionist. The girl is named Hera, and she can turn invisible, which is called being a veil. Just in case your reader is too stupid to have picked up on this fact, like this line is... So they're talking about their powers, and she says she's a psychic. And I mostly sense strong emotions that give me flashes of information. It's not much, but it's all I've got. And then she thinks, liar, you haven't got anything. And it's like, yup. We have been reading for this entire 79 now pages. We know that she doesn't have any powers, and she has no reason to think that to herself. Why is this here? So yeah, they just like sass. Well, the guy sasses, the girl is again seeming very, very innocent. We're just surrounded by like super innocent young people that our main character's probably gonna feel like they need to protect. But I think I'm gonna be done for the moment. I just wanted to knock out a couple of chapters, and now I'm gonna go do something else. I'll see you for the next chapter. Hi, hello. I've been avoiding doing this and just playing video games all morning, but alas, the time has come. But I do have this chocolate that I just found at Aldi yesterday, and it is so good. I like dark chocolate, but I don't like it when it's super bitter, and this is not, so yeah. All right, emotional support chocolate on board. Let's read. We're with Payden. Oh joy. Suddenly everybody in this town is like, all they care about is this frickin' these trials, but they did not care before. If you had told me, like if I had not read the blurb, but I'd read those first several chapters, and you told me actually this book is gonna be about like Hunger Games style deathmatch, trials, whatever, I would be like, no, it's not. It's gonna be about a girl with no powers trying to deal with a guy who's hunting her in her city. Like that's what the book seemed like it was gonna be about. Honestly, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate like cat and mouse kind of a vibe where like she's trying to stay under the radar but still be a thief, and he's a hunter, like a witch hunter. I mean, we've seen those books many times as well, but like if we could get rid of maybe like him being such a Nazi. Like I will say I'm reading another book that is by an indie author, and it has a lot of cliches, But I will say one thing for it, like the male lead has the big old, you know, usual backstory of, oh, he was trained to be a killer by his father. His evil father was forcing him to be a killer. But that guy did not have the disposition of a killer. He is like, I don't want to do this. I hate this. And he was finding ways to, like, lie to his father and not have to do the killing, and like he was resisting as soon as he possibly could in whatever way that he could, and eventually at the beginning of the book that I'm reading he ran away because that's not what he wanted for his life. This guy, he's not doing that. Like he might be like, oh well, I can maybe save this family by sending them out into the desert instead of just murdering their child in front of them. I'm a good man. And I'm like, no, you are not resisting basically at all. You just didn't want to kill a little kid. All right, anyway, they're riding in the carriage, and all the people of the town are like cheering and raucous about this trial that they suddenly care about a whole lot. Once my feet are on solid ground again and swallowed by open air, I take a deep breath. Your feet are swallowed by open air? What does that even fucking mean? This definitely has some Light Lark levels of writing, Light Lark levels of sentences here. And I love it because it is real fucking entertaining. Again, if you would like to potentially avoid writing sentences like this, publishing them. I mean, we all write sentences like this. Of course we do when we're drafting. But like, if you'd like to avoid publishing them, hi, I'm a developmental editor and I can help you. Because I was like several days ago, years old, when I learned that developmental editors for like traditional publishing are not nearly as thorough as I am. And that's why all of this weirdness gets through, because they don't care. As long as there's like no ginormous book-breaking plot holes most of the time, they're not terribly concerned. They just want to get the book out and making money. I'm sure some care, but like most are not being paid to be as thorough as I am. Frankly, I'm not being paid to be as thorough as I am. I think I offer an amazing deal for how thorough I am. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm just like, I will do anything. Every time my eyes light on this page, I immediately think of something else to say that is not me reading this book. Also, she inhales the sweet scent of flowers and sunshine. What does sunshine smell like? They get into the palace. It's beautiful. If you've ever heard a palace described in a fantasy story, like an opulent one, that's how this is described. This author just like does not have a very strong handle on descriptions. I will say that descriptions of place are one of her weakest points. Descriptions of character too, honestly, but place especially. She's really not interested. You can kind of tell in her world. I can feel the lack of interest in her world in this story. So she gets assigned an Imperial, and it's the nice one who found her. It turns out his name is Lenny.
I'm what makes this city great.
I don't know. There's a lot of buzz around Lenny.
She gets taken to her room, and everything that you can guess would be in this room is described in this room. Again, we are not doing anything to set like anything in this book apart from other fantasy books, aside from the fact that they all just apparently wear modern clothing, except for, I'm gonna guess that I'm gonna guess that at the ball that they have to go to, she will be wearing like a modern prom dress. Nice and slinky. I'm gonna guess it's probably gonna have a slit of some kind for her leg to show through, but she's gonna claim it so that she can reach her dagger. And it's probably gonna have like a plunging either back or like neckline of some kind to show off the goods, or the way her hair cascades down her back. You know how it is. Also, she gives no fucks about the situation she's in. She's just thrilled that there's a big old bed for her to lay on here. Like, you remember all the emotional turmoil of the Hunger Games? We don't have time for that. We have to get to our cliches. By the way, I feel very confident already in giving this book shallow world building, in case anyone is wondering. I should have replaced the magic/lore doesn't make sense and just like lumped it in with the world building. I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna cross that one out too, but I'll let it have a little bit longer for the magic to do anything besides just be like a list of superpowers with very unimaginative names. Oh, we have indoor plumbing. Good, good. I have been noticing a trend of a lot of these modern fantasy books, like not wanting to deal with characters not having indoor plumbing, and so they're just like, yeah, in this fantasy world, indoor plumbing was invented. In the other book that I'm reading right now, that's the indie one, they just have elevators. Like nothing, very little other technology, but indoor plumbing and elevators they have. No thought is put into the infrastructure of how, when, why all of these things came about in this world. And we don't need to know, we don't need to read a manual about that. But like, it's something that we as authors should think about, should at least know ourselves, instead of just being like, oh yeah, hand wave, there's indoor plumbing in this world, what do you want? Like, they came here in a carriage pulled by horses, why not just have it be a car? Why not just have it be a car? Like, why are you drawing the line with certain technology and not others? I don't know. Not that I'm pretty sure that indoor plumbing did exist before cars. Yes, true. But what I'm getting at is the lack of care for the world building and the technology, not so much like, well, you know, if there's indoor plumbing, there has to be cars. It's just like, if you're going to have your magical world have indoor plumbing, why not give it a few other things just to mix it up? If you're going to be lazy about the technology, like, have some more fun with it besides just, like, you want the characters to be able to have a shower scene or, like, brush their hair in the mirror above their sink. Lenny tells her that she's going to be spending a lot of time in her room, and that's the end of that scene. But she spends then we have a time jump and she's spent the next 2 days cut in there. I have a sneaky feeling that this author is going to struggle as much with the passage of time, either having too much time or too little time pass, as the author of Lightlark. It is a real challenge. If you have a situation where there's a lot of time passing, figuring out that calibration of like how much is too much is difficult, I understand. I'm still, like, she says she reads a lot of books, takes a lot of baths, and eats a lot of food. what is the food? What are the books? Like, give me some kind of hint about the culture and the world, like, aside from a couple of types of fruit that we've seen. But she's so bored out of her mind, and she knocks on her door, and her guard, Lenny, is outside. I will never not see Lenny from The Simpsons. I'm sorry, you can tell me what he looks like all day, but if you're gonna name your character Lenny, you have to understand what you've done. Anyway, she's like, I'm so bored, and he's like, good news. Randomly, conveniently, tonight, you're gonna be having dinner with the king and people. Lenny tells her to just holler if she needs something, so now he's Lenny from The Simpsons with a southern accent. You just holler if you need anything. This book is not doing a good job of convincing me. Like, it says that she's anxious about the trials. It's telling me, oh, she's anxious about the trials and her lack of powers. But it's not showing me that she is. Like, mentioning that she's been pacing or been biting the inside of her cheek doesn't show me that she is afraid for the trials. First of all, because the trials didn't matter until this minute. And second of all, like, she has been so hyper competent at every moment. We've talked about this in other books. If you make your lead character so ridiculously competent, we don't worry about them. And if we don't worry about them, then you lose a lot in the story. We need to be worried about your lead character. They cannot be so competent. And I know this is the problem that a lot of writers, especially inexperienced writers, run into, where they want to have this like super badass character. And you can, but you have to give them weaknesses, and we have to see those weaknesses. We have to see them fail. We have to see them be nervous. We have to see them get their asses handed to them sometimes. So we understand, and your story has stakes. We don't believe that she's in any danger. She's been able to handle literally everything that's come her way so far. It turns out that she is going to have a maid, for the first time we're hearing this, called Ellie, who would help her dress for dinner. Wasn't the maid in Lightlark called like Ella or something like that? I feel like it definitely started with an E. Also, she's just encountered, I think, Kit, some blonde guy with pretty green eyes. Are we gonna have a love triangle here? Oh gosh, goodness, this is something else. This is something that happens with my characters a lot in early drafts, a lot of laughing. So they're just laughing, like back and forth. Every single line is like, he laughs, I laugh, he laughs, I laugh, is a very common like crutch gesture. And if you know it, then you can hunt it down and kill it with fire and have your characters do something else besides just laugh all the time. My characters, they're a laugh and smile and bunch, and I need to go through and deal with some of that. It is Kit. They just had a little banter. Again, this author just doesn't trust you. She tells us multiple times during this interaction that Kit's smile looks familiar, and then she finally learns that Kit is who he is. He's the brother of the guy that she likes. And rather than the author just letting you like understand that that's why the smile looks familiar, we have to have a whole sentence explaining that's why his smile looked familiar. It's because it's the same as what's his nuts, the guy that I like. Huh, it's because they're brothers. Like, okay, we can don't treat us like we're stupid. We can get that. Interesting. We're going, now this is not dressing for the ball, but this is dressing to meet the king and queen. And she decides on shiny black leggings and a silky green blouse. Shiny black, okay. She slips a dagger into the back band of her pants. You mean leggings, first of all. But second of all, she's just allowed to have it. They didn't take weapons from her. Did they give her weapons? Like, where'd this dagger come from? Like, you'd think if she was entering the palace that they would search her for weapons. No mention was ever made of that. So presumably this is just a dagger she's had the whole time and nobody ever bothered to take off of her. For a king that's supposedly very, very paranoid, he's gonna get assassinated. It would also help us think of this trial as like an actual plot point if Payton had any like memories of previous ones. The servant girl is brushing her hair, and the servant girl is like, oh, the trials are supposed to be different this year, but I don't know how. And Payton's like, different. And that means nothing to us or her, because I don't know if she has any idea what the trials normally entail, aside from them being bloody, quote unquote. The Hunger Games, we got an idea of what previous Hunger Games were like, and what the experiences of the characters have been like. with the Hunger Games as a part of their life for their entire lifetimes. But Peyton and nobody fucking cares about these trials until they are literally about to happen. And even then we barely care. Apparently she's going to be eating her meals with the other contestants in the throne room. Not the dining hall. The throne room. This is a palace. You'd think they'd have like multiple dining halls to choose from. And they're eating in the throne room. Before I have the chance to spout off questions, he nods to the guards standing nearby, silently ordering them to push open the looming door. What questions? What questions were you going to ask, Peyton? Before you had a chance to ask them, but what were they? I want to know that you have something going on between your ears, aside from just like a tumbleweed, just bonking around in there. Oh, everyone, I think we have our resident gay. I'm going to go out and say that this is our allotted gay character right now, and I only know a few things about her. We've met her. Her name is Andy. She's instantly nice to our main character, and she has a nose ring. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is the gay one, all right?
Sad news, everyone. I'm pretty sure I was wrong. Although I am struggling to keep track of characters, I think that Andy ends up in a heterosexual relationship. She could still be bisexual, but I don't think that ever comes up. So unfortunately, I clocked her as our allotted gay, but it seems like we are not even given one in this book. We don't even get scraps. Fuck off, LGBTQ community, I guess. This book is for heterosexuals, baby. We can't even get a token gay around here.
I'm sorry, but the fact that the people who have, like, strength powers are called brawnies is just, will never not be ridiculous to me. In case you were wondering, in case you were panicking because Blair has been mentioned in a scene and you were worried, as I was, that we would forget what color her hair is, don't worry. It's still lilac. So we meet a bunch of people, some names I'm probably going to forget. We're supposed to at least have names for them for when they die, probably. That's the end of that chapter. They just introduce themselves over dinner, and then we're going to go to Kai's point of view. Next, how long is this? I have a coaching session with a lovely client in a little while.
Sorry to crush your hopes and dreams. Strong bad.
You know who doesn't crush my hopes and dreams? My patrons, in reverse order just for fun. Sarah, Lisa, Amanda, Jenny, Savvy, Scribbling Cat, Rennie, Jesper, Zaire, Shelby, Callison, Anne-Sophie, Patrick, Belle, Light Julie, Kit, Merween, Sophia, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Melissa, Afra, Deborah, Alyssa, Celia, Amanda Lafone, KJ, Jessica, Caitlin, Ursula, Robin, Jojo Bookish, Bear, Kirsten, Pudamancer, Mooney, Kohikaro, Kira, Sam, Haley, Pantsing Pony, Roma, 78 kilograms of shade, Kat, Sarah, Peregrine Morningstar, Sunny Shy, Bird Anonymous, July, Martha Baggins, SB Boots, Laknunga, Constantina, Gay Tutter, Jen, Annika, K, Scout, and GK. Thanks so much for not ruining my hopes and dreams, everyone.